Hello and welcome to the Document Creator course. Here's going to be our contacts for remediation support if you need anything past this course. If you want extra information or training, you have other training videos, guides and practice documents, and external sources on our website at ada.nv.gov. Our team goal and mission is we are dedicated to ensuring equal access to information and services for all its citizens to achieve accessibility standards outlined in the Americans with Disabilities Act, short ADA, and the Rehabilitation Act of 1975 for electronic data. To achieve full compliance, this will require a coordinated effort involving all state agencies. To support ongoing compliance, the Office of the Chief Information Officer's web team has developed an online remediation training resource that is accessible to all agencies. Why remediation is important? Remediation is important because we have individuals that are going to be accessing these documents that either are one of many disabilities, whether it being blindness, low level vision, deaf or hard of hearing, people with motor disabilities, or even people with ADHD. Now, we're not just remediating for people with disabilities. As people that don't have disabilities will also be using assistive technology to read out these documents, such as like people with lower literacy, non-native speakers, or those who prefer to listen to their documents. The learning materials we're going to be covering today are Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And we're going to dabble a little bit in the Adobe Acrobat suite. And we're going to be using NVDA, WebAIM.org, and we're going to be covering what is going to pass our Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or other known as WCAG. Screen readers and document readers. There's a distinct difference between these. Screen readers are computer software that assists the blind and visually impaired in using computers. It serves as a platform for the visually impaired to communicate with their computers. These are normally external softwares that are not built in to our applications, whereas document and text readers are computer software that converts digital text into clear, easy to understand audio, but it has less features than a screen reader. These are going to be computer software that are built into our applications, such as Microsoft's Read Aloud function or Adobe's Read Out Loud function. The screen reader that we recommend using are NVDA, and that's free for all operating systems. VoiceOver is Apple exclusive, and then we have JAWS, which is a paid-for version, which is also very good. Our learning objectives and goals for this course is to gain a foundation of the tools to create user-accessible documents, become familiar with the accessibility tools in the Office suite to create accessible documents, and then a basic understanding of resolving most accessibility errors in the Microsoft Office suite to create ADA-compliant documents. Our class overview or class structure is going to go as such. We're going to cover Module 1, which is going to be most common errors, that being adding a title, correct tagging, and setting a language in Adobe Acrobat Pro. Then we're going to cover checking accessibility. Then after that, we'll create a compliant letterhead. And then the next module after that is going to be our main course of accessibility things that we need to fix, such as like creating links, creating compliant tables, adding and giving alternative text to images, colors and acronyms, etc. And then we're going to cover how to export it and convert to PDF successfully with the most issues that we'll be taking over, or with the least amount of issues being taken over. We're going to keep the formatting that we work on inside of the Office suite so that we have less to work on in Adobe. And then we're also going to be covering a manual accessibility check inside of Adobe as well. Now, our example of a non-compliant document is going to be as such. I'll go ahead and pull this up. Here, we have a whole lot of issues on this page. One being, right off the bat, is this text is going to be is actually too light for the background, making it very hard to read for people with color disabilities. So we'll have to go ahead and we'll have to cover that as well. This is an image letterhead. These aren't very accessible because we have, for example, we have our Joe Lombardo, our governor, and then we have administrators for departments, and then maybe even department information. That's going to cause an issue. And then we have our first heading, or what should be our first heading one, which is this public notice meeting. This should be a heading one, and as we can see by the styles up here, that this is not a heading one. And then we also have more color contrast issues with this heading being on a too dark of a background for being too dark of a text. Another issue that I'm noticing here is we have some special characteristics such as this underscore. Underscores should be avoided to try and lessen the amount of information that is being put into assistive technology or a screen reader. And then lastly, we have this complex table. The reason why this is a complex table is because we have headers that aren't going to follow the entire scope of the table. This table should have technically 4 headers, and it should be on this left-hand side because each header should be covering a row. Our headers should always be covering an equal amount of information, and if they're not, it's considered complex because we can't have this one heading cover this entire table of information. And then as we come down here, we'll go ahead and find that we have information that shouldn't be in a table, such as these locations. We don't want to put information inside of tables that don't need to be inside of tables, because then we cause a formatting issue and the tables are not very useful in that sense. Tables shouldn't be used for any formatting of any kind. That way we avoid overloading the screen readers with unnecessary amounts of information. So first things first is we're going to cover missing document title, missing or incorrect language setting, and then a missing heading 1 on the document. So with document titles, these can be set in both Adobe Acrobat and in the Microsoft Office suite. If you want to do that, we can go to File and then click on Info. And then on the right side of the Info page, we're going to go to the Properties section. In the Properties section, there's going to be a title input box that says Add a Title. If there is none, then there'll obviously be information inside the title box. And then we're just going to go ahead and add the title name of the document. It can be the same as the file name, or it can be different. If it's going to be the same as the file name, it should exclude special characteristics, and it should be simple, because the document title is what's going to be read out to the user, not the file name. When it comes to language, this is something that can only be set in Adobe Acrobat. And to do that, we can go to File, select Properties, then the document property box appears. In this box, we're going to go ahead and click on the Advanced tab at the top. Then find the Reading Options section, which should be located towards the bottom of the box. And in the language drop-down area, we're going to select the correct language for our document, and then click OK. And then lastly, we have headings. This is also something that can be carried over from the Office suite to Adobe. And the reason we do this is because heading 1s are going to be the most important heading on a document. The reason why they're the most important heading is because headings act like bookmarks when it comes to assistive technology. So when we have headings, it goes in a certain hierarchy of importance. 1 being the highest of importance, and so on and so forth, down to 6. So we can go to a total of 6 headings down a grouping, and that's going to be our hierarchy for that heading groups. The reason why we have a heading 1 required on the first page of a document is because a heading 1 is going to basically signify to the user that this is the start of your document. That's one of the biggest reasons why we want to include a heading 1 on the first page, is for that reason alone almost. Heading 1s can be added to the beginning, can be added to the document by using a heading 1 style on the home tab of Word. That being up here at the top where we have heading, title, subtitle, etc. And if the heading 1 style is not something to your liking, we can always go ahead and change or create our own heading 1 style to make use of a heading 1 in the way we would like to. And to do that, we can go ahead and click on the box in the bottom right of the styles portion. And then it'll open up a styles box. In the styles box, we can click on the A+ icon to add a new style. In this area, we can name it however we may like. The style type should be paragraph. The style based on should be heading 1, and the style for the following paragraph can be whichever you like. And then that's pretty much all we have to do to make a custom heading. In the formatting section of the area, there will be options that you can make to customize how you would like your heading 1 to be styled. I'm going to go ahead and cover those real quick inside of a blank Word document. All right, so inside of this Word document, I will go ahead and go to File, Info, and over here on the right hand side is where I'll put in my title. I'll name it Example Doc, and then press Enter, and then click Away. And then now that I have my title set, if I were to carry this over to PDF, it should carry over the title as well. So going back, we can go ahead and add in our heading 1. So as I explained earlier, you can use the heading 1 styles. That is default, or we can create our own. And to do that, we're just going to go ahead and click on this bottom right corner, and it brings over the style box. I'll go ahead and click on this A+ icon down here. And in here is where I can add in my custom style. So I'll just name it Custom Heading 1. Style type paragraph, style based on heading 1. I don't really mind for the style following paragraphs, so I'll go ahead and skip that. And in the formatting section is where we'll add in our information that we want our new heading to be like. In this case, I'll go ahead and make it a dark blue with bold and underline. Sure. And then we'll click OK. And now that makes a custom heading 1, and this is going to be different than the heading 1 style that is normal to Microsoft Office, as you can see. Another way to check for headings, if you are unsure if headings are in our document, is you can go to Review, check Accessibility, and then go to the navigation pane. Over here, it's going to show our headings. In this case, we have heading 1. So now if I were to add in a heading 2 under here, now I've created a group of headings that applies only to this first heading 1. As you can see, I can open and close it, and that's my grouping. All right, and then I went ahead and pulled this document up in Adobe Acrobat, and I will show you the export later on how to export this document correctly over to Adobe. But just for notes, here, as you can see, our heading 1 and our heading 2s are carried over, thus showing that if we add it correctly in Word and export it correctly, it's going to carry over into Adobe, thus less work we have to do here. And then if I go to my document properties, I have my title, but I also want to check initial view, make sure that the show is set to document title instead of file name. And then lastly, we have advanced. Here is where we want to put in the language that our document is going to be speaking out to the user. In this case, it's going to be English because this would be an English document. So we'll go ahead and keep it as English and then click OK. Those are going to be the most common issues that we're going to find when it comes to remediation. So moving on is going to be checking for accessibility. And this is going to be checking for accessibility inside of the Office suite. It's going to be the same for every single application inside the Office suite, whether it be Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. You can go ahead and click on Review tab at the top, click on Check Accessibility, select Check Accessibility, and then the Accessibility Inspection box will appear on the right-hand side of your screen. The second option is you can go to File, click on Info, click on Check for Issues, and then select Check Accessibility. These two options will go ahead and open up the accessibility pane on the right-hand side of the screen inside your document. There's no difference between these two options. There's two different ways to do it. So I'll go ahead and show you that real quick. So in here, I can go ahead and click on Review, and then click Check Accessibility, or select this and click Check Accessibility. And while we have this open, we want to make sure that Keep Accessibility Checker While I Work is checked. This way, if an issue pops up, it will automatically catch that issue and populate our accessibility box. The other way of doing it is going to File, Info, Check for Issues, and then Check Accessibility. Again, it'll bring up our accessibility pane on the right-hand side. So next is we're going to create a compliant letterhead. We're going to cover setting up margins, columns, and rulers, and then adding tools in the ribbon toolbar if necessary. We're also going to be using the breaks tool and the show paragraph tool to just make it a little bit more understandable of where we're working. So first things first is I want to set up the ruler. The reason I want to do this is because it'll show how the document is divided when we set its columns. It shows where text can be written, and it will show. It will give us help when setting up and aligning our letterhead. And to do this, we're just going to go to the View tab at the top, find the Show Tools section, and then in there we're going to click the checkbox for Ruler. Once we have the ruler set, we're going to go ahead and start making our letterhead. So first things first is we have to set up the margins. The margins are going to be in the Layout tab. Click on Margins, and then make the margins narrow. Next is we're going to create columns. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and click on the Columns box, select Column, set columns to 3, and then we're going to open up the More Columns box as well. This will give us settings to set our columns to be certain lengths and widths, and our spacings as well. Please keep in mind that as we make this letterhead, you can change it however you may like for your agency's purpose. This is just a compliant letterhead example, just to get you guys familiar with how to set up a letterhead. So first things first, while we have the More Columns box open, we can uncheck Equal Column Width at the bottom, and then we want to change the column width to these dimensions for the example. Our first column width is going to be 1.5 and a spacing of 0. Our second column width is going to be a 4.3 with a spacing of 0. And then our third column width is going to be a 1.7. If you set the first two columns correctly, it should make the third column automatically 1.7. So now if you finish working inside of a column, we want to go ahead and use the Breaks tool to change our editable space to the next available column. In this case, say we were working on the first page, or first column, and we wanted to move over to the second column, we'd go ahead and click on Layout, click on the Breaks drop-down menu, and then select Column. If you don't have the breaks tool, we can go ahead and add that to the ribbon by right-clicking on an empty space in the ribbon and clicking on Customize the Ribbon. And then we're going to change the commands list to all commands, select break, find and select break from the list, and then click on add. And then once we have it added to our ribbon, we can go ahead and click OK. Now, if we want to set back our document back to a one-column document or a normal document, we're going to go to the Layout tab and click on Breaks, click on Continuous, and before we do anything else, we're going to go ahead and click on the columns and then change our columns to 1. This will allow us to have our document back in normal columns and thus normal editing. If we want our margins back to normal as well, we can always change that by going to margins and then switching it to narrow. So the example of this would be, first we'll go to the View tab. Our ruler is already checkmarked, so I'll keep it that way. And then in the Home tab, I'll go ahead and enable the paragraph option. So now we'll go to Layout, go to Margins, go to Narrow, and then we'll change our columns to 3. And then we'll go into the More Column section. Uncheck Equal Column Width. I'm going to go ahead and make all my spacings 0. And then I'll go ahead and fill my information. So it's 1.5 for the first width, 4.3 for the second width, and since I did all that correctly, I now have a 1.7 for my last width. Go ahead and click OK. And then I can start adding in my information now. Alright, so let me go ahead and start copying and pasting in some information. Alright, so now all I want is Joe Lombardo, governor, in my first column. So all I have to do to go to my second one is go back to Layout, go to Breaks, and then go to Column. Again, if you're missing the break tool, you can always go ahead and click on Customize the Ribbon. I'll go ahead and get rid of this. Alright, so change it from popular commands to all commands. And then this is going to be in alphabetical order, so I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down until I get to break. And there it is. So I'll go ahead and click on that and then click Add. It's going to say it needs to be in a custom group, so I'll go ahead and click on New Group and then click Add and then click OK. And it should add your breaks into this new group over here at the end of the ribbon. Because I don't need this here, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that now. And then click on Remove and click OK. Alright, so now that I'm in the middle, I can go ahead and start adding in my department information. Okay, and then do this. Again, the letterhead does not have to be exactly how I'm making it. It just needs to be compliant. This is not part of, there we go. All right, so if I have my department information here, I can go ahead and go back to my third column by go ahead and clicking on breaks and then going to column. And then here's where I'll put my administrative information or administrative team. And there we go. So now that we have all of our columns, with information, I want it to go back to a one-column page. To do that, I will just go ahead and click on breaks and then click on continuous. And here I am down here. Now I'll go back to columns and I'll choose 1. And because I want to go back to normal, I can change it back to normal margins. And there we go. And because I know I need a heading 1 in here, I'll go ahead and use my custom heading 1, and I'll type in this is a heading 1. And I can go ahead and disable that paragraph information as well. All right, and as you can see, as I put in this information, it already popped up an issue in my accessibility panel. I will go ahead and cover that in the next section, so bear with me. In this section, we're going to be creating links, creating compliant tables, adding and giving alternative text to images, and then colors and acronyms. Links and hyperlinks. So to insert links and hyperlinks, we're going to go ahead and either A, insert the link and then add the text, B, add the text and then add the link to the text, and then after that, we have to give them both screen tips. This is going to be what the screen reader is going to read out to the user, not what is on the screen itself. And then we have to make sure that the text is underlined and that it is blue text. So tables, again, we're going to have to we should be creating simple tables when it comes to these and not complex tables. And to do that, we can use the diagram in the inserts area and the table. And then we want to make sure that we add in the correct specifications. And once we have that, we want to make sure that header rows is checked under the table style options. And then we want to highlight the top row of the table, right click, go to table properties, and then go to row. In the row tab, there should be a repeat as header row at the top of each page box. We want to make sure that is checked. Even if the table isn't going to go past that one page, we should always make sure that that is at least checked as well. Drawing a table is available as an option to create tables, but I wouldn't recommend using that as it's not very good at doing what it should. And then again, avoid complex tables, make really simple tables, and then do not merge or split cells, as that will also cause tables to become complex. Tables in Excel, however, are going to be a little bit different. If a table style is going to be used in Excel, we want to make sure that the table style has the correct contrast ratios so that it doesn't cause color issues. Again, we want to make sure that header rows are checked inside of Excel as well. You can find those under the table design, and that is very necessary for keeping accessible tables inside of Excel. When adding alternative text to images, it's going to be the same for the entire Microsoft Office suite. All you have to do is go to the Insert tab, for inserting images, go to the Insert tab, find images under, click on Pictures icon, and then we're going to say select this device, find the image it was saved to on the computer, and then it'll add in the image. In terms of giving it alternative text, there's two ways we can do this. We can use the accessibility panel on the right-hand side, where you will click on one of the pictures. It'll give you recommended actions of add a description or mark as decorative. And that's one of the ways you can do it. The second way you can do it is right-clicking on the image inside of the document, and then you can view alternative text at the bottom, and that will give us the alternative text box as well. Now, one of the other recommended actions that were inside the accessibility check is mark as decorative. Mark as decorative is only going to be useful if you have only decorative images in your document. Decorative is considered any images that do not hold significant value for the context of your document. So if you're like using images that display information to the user that is considered important, we can't mark that as decorative. But if it's just like a picture of like dandelions or flowers or anything that doesn't really help with the document, we can go ahead and mark those as decorative. Now, colors and acronyms, you only have to worry about colors if we have text that is not of a bright enough contrast or a dark enough contrast from the background. So for example, with the earlier document that we had, our text was too bright for the white background, and that's going to cause us an issue. If you're not sure, we will use a third-party contrast checker called webaim.org, in which you can grab the hexadecimal code for your color, put it inside this contrast checker, and then grab the hexadecimal code for the background color and put it inside. It'll compare the two. It'll give you a contrast ratio. It'll tell you whether it passes AA or AAA. Just note that when it comes to color, we're always looking for AA, and that's the least we should be doing. But we always strive for AAA because AAA would make it a lot more accessible. Another thing to add about using visuals as explanatory information, we can use highlighting, bold, and italics to convey information, but use them sparingly as assistive technology is not going to be picking up on these visual cues. Now, in terms of acronyms, acronyms must have the extended version of the acronym before using it elsewhere in the document, such as ADA, Americans with Disability Act, should be explained earlier in the document before using the acronym ADA. If you are going to be using the acronyms or highlighting, bold, and italics, just note that you should be adding alternative text to these so that it has other information attached to it that isn't going to rely solely on visuals to convey information. Now, there's a little bit of notes I want to put for PowerPoint. That is the check reading order issue or the duplicate slide title issue. If you're going to be exporting this document over to PDF, you don't have to worry about those two, as it'll be easier to fix them in Acrobat than it would be to fix them in PowerPoint. So now go ahead and cover these issues. All right, so first things first, I want to cover how to add in our links. And to do that, we'll go ahead. Oh, there we go. So I'll say click here to add a, click here to go to ada.nv.gov. So if I want to make this a link, all I will have to do is highlight this text, right-click, choose the link option. Now there is two options we can use with this link hyperlink function. One, we can make it go to an email address, in which if you're going to be putting in an email address, all you have to do is type in mail2, and then the full email address. Now, if we want it to go to an existing file or web page, all we have to do is go ahead and type in the full address inside of the address bar. In this case, it's going to be https://ada.nv.gov. Now, as you can tell, the address and the text to display are going to be different because the address is what we want it to go to, not what it wants to show on the document. Now, before I click OK, there's one more note I want to do before making this a link, and that is adding a screen tip. Screen tips, again, are going to be what's going to be read out to the user. So in here, I want it to prompt the user to click on this link if they would like to go to it. So I'd say click here, or I'd say click to go to ada.nv.gov. Or I say click for ada.gov website. And then click OK. And then I'll click OK again. So now it says click to go to ada.nv.gov, or I can say, as it shows right here in this little ghost box, it says click for ada.nv.gov website, which is the screen tip. Now if I click on this, it'll open up separately our website. All right, so then next is going to be tables. Again, tables are going to be in the Insert tab, and we'll go click on Table. And I'll be using this diagram just as reference. Make sure that header row is tagged. Now that we have our simple table, and I know that my first row is going to be our header row, I'm going to want to highlight both of these, right-click, and then go to Table Properties. Make sure we're in the Row tab. I want to make sure that Repeat as Header Row is at the top of each page is selected. And then we'll click OK. And then from here, I want to avoid merge cells, as it'll pop up this issue up here. And our recommended action is to split cells. This is exactly what we want, is a simple table, because if it's complex, it's going to cause an issue even inside of Word. So in Excel, it's going to be around the same thing. So if I select this information right here and then go to Insert and click Table, I want to make sure that my table has headers is checked, and then click OK. This is going to be too bright of a color for our white background. So if I want to make sure that it's not going to be too bright, I'm going to go ahead and use a darker color. For example, black is a good color. We don't want to do grays. Black with no white background at all is also really good, because the text I'll be typing in here is going to be on white. Again, just make sure that if we're going to be using table styles, that we are using good colors for such. Now we'll cover our alternative text. So again, we can use the accessibility panel on the right-hand side, and we can verify description, and then here's where we'll add an alternative text. In this case, I'll say it's the Great Seal of the State of Nevada. And then if I click the X, it'll cause no issues. Or I can right-click and then go to View Alt Text. It'll do the same exact thing. I'll go ahead and get rid of this just to show what it's like to add in mark as decorative. So if I mark this as decorative, it'll pass that issue, and it won't read this out to the user because it's decorative. All right, next is going to be color. So say if I wanted to make sure that this heading 1 actually passes color contrast, I can go ahead and highlight this, click on my color, go ahead, go to more colors, and then I'm going to copy this hexadecimal code down here at the bottom. And then I'll go ahead and pull back up my website, click on New tab, I'll go to webaim.org. In here, I'm going to click on make sure we're on color contrast, and then press enter. It should be the first link. And then inside this color contrast checker, we'll go ahead and paste our hexadecimal value. And because I know it's on a white background, I'll keep this as white. As you can see, this blue color passes AA, at least for normal text, and does not pass AAA. This is completely fine. I just recommend always looking for a AA standard or AAA standard. So if I wanted to pass AAA, all I would have to do is change the color a little bit to make it darker, not by much. Now, if we had a bad color, such as like this baby blue, then we have a failure for both AA and AAA across the board. Now, say if I wanted to use this darker color, I can go ahead and copy this, go back to my Word document, and then paste this in the hexadecimal code, and then click OK. And it'll use my new color. It doesn't look that much different than my old one, which is good. So next is our exporting and converting into a PDF section. We're going to be covering 2 ways to export from the Microsoft Office suite. And there's going to be settings for each application in the Microsoft Office suite that is going to be separate from each other. So I'll show how to do it for every single one, between Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. In Word, we're going to cover our preferences if we have Acrobat, we'll have the Acrobat tab at the top that we will use to export our documents to PDF. We're going to make sure that we have these settings: view Adobe PDF result, prompt for Adobe PDF file name, and convert document information are all checked. And we'll make sure that we have PDF/A1A PDFA compliance. Then we're going to make sure we have create bookmarks, add links, and enable accessibility and reflow with tagged Adobe PDF are all checked. Once we have all that checked, we can go ahead and click on Advanced Settings. In the Advanced Settings, we're going to make sure our compatibility is set to Acrobat 8.0. Now, once we click OK, it's going to ask you to save these settings. Once you are saving these settings, we don't want to change the file location that these settings are being saved to, as we are saving these settings directly to Adobe and not to anywhere else. So don't change the file location when we're saving these settings. You can name it however you like, just don't change the location. I'll go ahead and show you how to do that in Word real quick. So go ahead and click on Acrobat at the top, and then click on Preferences. Make sure View Adobe PDF Result, Prompt for Adobe PDF File Name, and Convert Document Information are selected. Go ahead and select that as 1A. Create bookmarks, add links, and enable accessibility and reflow at tagged Adobe PDF are already checked. And then in here, we're going to change the compatibility to Acrobat 8.0. And then we would click OK. I'll go ahead and show you guys. So here it's going to ask me to save our information. Again, like I said earlier, you can change the file name however you like. Just don't change where it's being saved to. In this case, I already have settings applied, so we can go ahead and stop that. And then click Cancel. And then go back to my settings. And then click OK. And then that's going to be how you export in Word. Again, the second option is going to File, Export, Create PDF/XPS document. That's only if you don't have Adobe, though. I highly recommend using the Adobe version if you're going to be changing, if you already have it at Adobe Acrobat Pro. Next is going to be our Excel settings. Our Excel settings are going to be a little bit special. First, we're going to have View Adobe PDF Result, Prompt for Adobe PDF File Name, and Convert Document Information all checked. Then we want Create Bookmarks, Add Links, Enable Accessibility, and Reflow with tagged Adobe PDF. We want to make sure that we have Fit to Paper Width checked and Prompt for Conversion settings checked. The reason why we have Fit to Paper Width checked instead of Fit to Worksheet to a single page checked is because if we have a wider or a bigger Excel spreadsheet, it'll shrink it down but it'll flow down the pages if it's necessary. However, if we try and put this one worksheet into a single page, it's going to shrink the entire worksheet and make it very hard to read for a user. So fit to paper width is going to be your best option when exporting these documents. Next, we'll go ahead and click on Advanced Settings and make sure that our compatibility is set to Acrobat 8.0. And just to show that, we'll go ahead and open up over here and then go to Acrobat, Preferences, View Adobe PDF Result, Prompt for Adobe PDF File Name, and Convert Document Information are all checked. Then we have Create Bookmarks, Add Links, Enable Accessibility and Reflow with Tagged Adobe PDF, Fit to Paper Width, and Prompt for Conversion are all checked. And then in Advanced Settings, we have Compatibility Acrobat 8.0. And then Cancel. And then we'll click OK. Now if I click Create PDF, it'll create this PDF and save it to our workstation. The other option, again, if you don't have Acrobat, is going to be File, Export, Create PDF/XPS document. But that's only if you don't have Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. And then lastly, it's going to be our PowerPoint settings. Our PowerPoint settings are going to be the same three: View Adobe PDF Results, Prompt for Adobe PDF File Name, Convert Document Information, all checked. Then we just want three things checked here, which is Create Bookmarks, Add Links, and Enable Accessibility and Reflow with Tagged Adobe PDF. Again, make sure that compatibility is set to Acrobat 8.0 in the advanced settings. So go back to our Acrobat and Preferences. We have View Adobe PDF Results checked, Prompt for Adobe PDF File Name checked, Convert Document Information checked, and then we have Create Bookmarks, Add Links, and Enable Accessibility and Reflow with Tagged Adobe PDF checked. Then we have Advanced Settings. Make sure Acrobat 8.0 is selected, and then you would click OK, save it. Again, don't change the file location. Do not change the file location, but you can change the name. And then click OK, and then Create PDF. And then just like the other three, if you don't have Adobe Acrobat Pro, you can go to File, Export, Create PDF/XPS document. This is going to be your best way if you don't have Adobe Acrobat Pro. Once you have all these settings saved, you can go ahead and create PDF in the top left whenever you feel like you need to make a Adobe Acrobat conversion. Do not use the Save as Adobe PDF, as this will either A, get rid of all of the work we've done already inside of our applications and make it bad time to remediate in Adobe Acrobat, or B, it'll make our remediation efforts worse inside of Adobe Acrobat than they were if we were to just use our normal conversion settings. So in this section, I'm going to go ahead and use the NVDA screen reader to go over our document. And in here, I'll also check the logical reading order, and then we'll also cover color contrast and the links. And then I will open and manually check Adobe using the Adobe's accessibility checker. So first things first is the manual check in Adobe. We always want to make sure that logical reading order is correct. And the logical reading order requires the document's tags to be ordered and numbered in the way someone without disabilities would normally read it, left to right, top to bottom. Color contrast. If we fix the color contrast inside of Word and the rest of the Microsoft Office suite, we won't really have to worry about that in Adobe. But just to reiterate, this is just that requires that the text contrasts well enough with the background. And then lastly, we have navigation links. This is just to make sure that the links have a destination and are the correct destination. For example, my ada.nv.gov link should go to ada.nv.gov and not go anywhere else. So in the logical reading order, here we have a good example of what a good reading order would be. First would be 1, Brian Sandoval, Governor. 2 would be the figure of the Great Seal of Nevada with its alternative text. 3 would be our administrators for the department, and then 4 would be the department information. If you need to reorder our document tags, you can use the order tool on the left hand, on either the left hand or the right hand side of our Adobe Acrobat. And then to see if the document reader that is provided in Adobe Acrobat, to see if our document reads correctly, you can go to View, click on Read Out Loud option, and then select Activate Read Out Loud. And then you can go to select Read This Page Only. And this is also how you would go and deactivate it if you would like to as well. This is just more information on the color contrast. When checking for color contrast, we're comparing the foreground and the color to the background color. And then if you want to use NVDA instead as a check to see if your document is doing well, this is where you would find it. You can install it and turn it on. Use these keyboard commands to navigate through your document. Your arrow keys move where you're going to read, and then NVDA key and down arrow will read the current line, and then the NVDA key and tab to navigate documents elements. We can also use this to inspect formatting, hyperlinks, and alternative text. We just want to make sure, pay attention to how NVDA will read the document and verify that NVDA reads a description of images, and then we can save and close. So going to that, we're going to go ahead and we will carry over this document that we've been working on. Go ahead and create PDF. It's actually aiming to save. Go ahead and click yes. Oh. Try this again. There we go. All right. So here we have it. First things first is I'm going to use my prepare for accessibility and then check for accessibility. As you can see, we only have one issue, and that's the summary. This can only be added in Adobe, but we will go over that inside of our other courses, so I won't go over that now. And then again, we have logical reading order and color contrast. So if I open up my reading order panel and change to page content order, it will show us the order in which our document should be being read in. In this case, we have 1 and 2 as Joe Lombardo. 27 is our Great Seal of Nevada, which is obviously out of order. Then we have 3, which is our department information. It's up to you whether you want to put your department information first before your administrator information. And then we have our heading 1. Then we have our only sentence, and then we have our table. These empty spaces aren't going to be read out to the user. So when it comes to these, we can just delete these out of our document. But we'll go over that as well inside of our other courses. But the main issue I want to worry about here is going to be how it's going to be read out using NVDA. So when I open up NVDA, close out of that. And a big reason why the figure was, or the Great Seal of Nevada was 27 was because I also marked it as a decorative image. So it moved it to the end of the line because it's not going to be read out anyway. So then go ahead and click OK. So now I can click on Joe Lombardo, and I will use my arrow keys to read out my information. Exactly. So again, and as you can see, as you heard, it said click to go to, which isn't good. That was bad practice on my end. But it will also read out the screen tip, which said click for ada.nv.gov website instead of ada.nv.gov. So I can go ahead and exit out of this by clicking on my icon at the bottom and then click exit. And then that's it. So just to recap, if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to these emails right here provided. Tana and I are trainers, and we can schedule one-on-ones if you have any questions. And then ADA Remediation is going to be our remediation group. And then Michelle is going to be our supervisor, in which she will forward any information that she needs to us. And then our website is also provided down here at the bottom, ada.nv.gov. Now, some additional information, if you would like, are also provided here. We have the tables, some information about those are provided at W3, some information on images, and just general WCAG guidelines are all found at w3.org. Thank you for attending.